couple days.
Like days away.
Days away.
Surprise, I'm an atheist. You just did it with the atheist.
And so I've never had a husband yet. I'm about to get one.
It was disingenuous and a lack of integrity, honestly.
Would be the type of Christian that I would push back on.
All the time. Well, you're not the only one.
Mostly thinking you should get counseling. I was mostly thinking, really, Bethany should get counseling. But I'm gonna lead in this and make it about me and my issues.
And not just like run away from each other in fear or like separate, but we've been able to like grow.
Hello and welcome to Unreligiously. Today I am so excited to go through a history of Bethany Beal and her husband Dave with you guys. And this is the Bethany Beal from Girl Defined. She runs the channel with her sister, and the sisters started over a decade ago. For those of you that haven't seen any of my other videos on Girl Defined, definitely go check those out after you watch this one because it'll give you even more context about who Girl Defined is and why this marriage and Dave's eventual deconstruction is such a big deal. When Kristen and Bethany started their channel, they were basically focusing on singleness, on being a young single woman who was trying to stay pure, dress modestly, find a Christian husband, and work on themselves with marriage in mind. These videos span topics like adult content consumption, questions to ask a guy on the first date, and how to be single on the holidays, how to overcome loneliness as a Christian woman, and how to trust God's plan when you think he might not be giving you marriage and kids. They really did touch on something that a lot of Christian women deal with, struggle with on a day-to-day basis, especially with how hard marriage and children are pushed. But we're not going to spend too long in Bethany's single years. I'm actually going to bypass that entirely, and we're going to start out with what was going on only a few days before Bethany got married.
You were literally getting married in a couple days.
Like days away.
Days away. Why are you and Dave actually saving sex for marriage? Ooh, just a personal question. No big deal.
Yes, I know. Let's just jump right in.
Let's just get to it.
But I think it's good. I'm glad we're talking about these things because I do feel like, you know, especially like before I'm married and especially as a single, I'm curious. I'm like, why do people do things? I want to know, like, why are you doing that? Like I said, Bethany and Kristen's content was focused on being a godly Christian woman. Like it says in the title, Girl Defined implies it's defined by somebody, and that somebody is God. Their content tells you how to be a woman, a person, a wife, a mother. It tells you how to live within their religious rules. And so for Bethany, finding a Christian husband was of the utmost importance. And one of the ways that a Christian man can truly prove his dedication to the faith with a Christian woman is to lead the way when it comes to abstinence, in saving sexual intimacy for marriage. And Dave did that. There was never any real question about where Dave stood as far as his religious beliefs. I will say early on, people did have some questions about Dave's sexuality. I don't think posting questions like that about people, it's really appropriate, so I'm whatever, but people did have questions about that, but people did always think that Dave really, you know, was on the same page with Bethany. And as you will see in the future, Dave does appear in many of her videos and he vocally does share her beliefs. So I'll let her continue with her early views on sexuality and going into the marriage, just to give you guys an idea of this conservative ideology that is really the foundation for the marriage between Bethany and Dave.
I think one of the big reasons is because when we look in scripture, we do see that sexual intimacy is reserved for a husband and a wife. You never see that displayed as God's good design outside of marriage. Sex within should be reserved for a husband and a wife. And so I've never had a husband yet. I'm about to get one. He created sex to be so intimate, so like relationally bonding. And I personally just love the idea of experiencing that with my husband. So I think that's probably why I'm saving it, because one, God commands us to. It's kind of like one of those black and white
For our
areas.
good.
For our good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's for our good. I think that I'm not nervous. I think the more that I have studied God's good design for intimacy, the more that I've learned why God created sex, why God created marriage, honestly, the more excited I've become to get to experience that level of deep intimacy, not just physically, but emotionally. It's like this fuller, holistic picture, I guess, of a relationship.
Bethany is saying all of the right things. And if you guys have watched a lot of my content before, you know that I don't have an issue with you guys choosing to stay abstinent. I actually don't really care as long as you're respecting yourself and other people. Don't hurt anybody, obviously, but I don't really care what you do outside of that. So if you want to wait till marriage, I'm not going to judge you for that. Where it becomes an issue to me is when we believe that it's commanded by God, that this purity, this abstinence, that it is commanded by God, and that it will, essentially, you will have more blessings in your future marriage. You'll have a better sex life. You'll be closer to your husband. You're going to have better sex than like a couple that didn't wait. All of those things are kind of taught to people that grow up in this purity culture mindset. And although Bethany and Kristen had actually created content that acknowledged these things, like does remaining abstinent mean that you will have a great marriage? Obviously the answer is no, that is not promised because of that. But the issue with purity culture is that even though you can say, yeah, obviously it's not promised, it is subtly taught to you that it will go that way, or that you're way more likely than your peers to have a happier marriage, the longevity of your marriage will be better. You will just have a more passionate marriage if you follow these rules. And although she's saying the right things in previous videos, she said the right things about understanding that it won't give her this future, I think she doesn't really understand this, and we'll get more into it as the video continues. But Bethany later on does experience the harms of purity culture. She actually makes a whole different brand called The Intimate Wife, where she tries to prepare people to tell them that when they get married, you can't just flip a switch from pure woman who has never thought about sex until age 30 to this super expressive, comfortable, free person. Even though she's saying now that she feels comfortable, that she doesn't have the all of that. A lot of these women, because they've so turned off that part of their brain, even though they think they have realistic expectations, they still really don't, because they don't have that base education. That's why later on we see Bethany speaking up about it, but I won't jump ahead. This is really to show you guys this early basis that she has going into marriage, how important these things are to her. And later on, I will show you guys Dave's opinion on these exact same topics.
And just seeing, wow, sexual intimacy within marriage is only a glimpse of the deep intimacy, relational intimacy that God desires to have with us. And just the fact that I get to experience like an earthly glimpse of that with my soon-to-be husband is amazing. It's kind of crazy because I've only been single for 30 years, literally 30. And so it's kind of interesting because being a wife, you do see that God calls, like in scripture, like the Proverbs 31 woman and stuff, she's this wife and she's amazing. And like Titus 2 women supposed to train younger women how to be godly wives. And it's like, wow, this is actually a really big role. So I go into this new role with a little bit of like fear and trembling, like, wow, this is a really serious position. And, I need my independence and my freedom, whatever, I'm not going to take that. I'm still just me. It's like, no, I'm choosing to enter into this new position. And so for me, I really do take my new role as a wife very seriously. And I want to learn how to be a good one.
I think this showcases the exact mindset that I want you guys to see. Her saying, I want to be a good wife. I want to learn to be one. Many Christians believe that you can prepare to be a good husband or a good wife by reading the scripture and preparing these qualities about yourself. And I do agree that there are, working on yourself will ultimately make you a better partner in the long run. However, every marriage is going to be different, and the reality is, you being a good spouse is going to be contingent on your dedication to learning your spouse, to communicating well, and to improving yourself based on, valid feedback. They believe that following the scripture is the rule book. If there are problems in the marriage, Chris or Bethany really need only turn to the scripture to change her behavior. They're not told to go communicate with their spouse about the issues and to focus on that. If Christ is the center of their marriage, it's like telephone. The first person you're communicating with is going to be God, and then your spouse, based on how that goes. I'm going to let her continue to another video shortly before she gets married, so you guys can see even further her mindset and some of the naivety that comes along with this. And that's not her fault. That's not to dog on her. This is the reality of the teachings that are in the fundamentalist evangelical church in America. And so I think that it really is shedding light on it. And later on, Bethany does, I'm not condoning any of her behavior. She has a lot of harmful viewpoints. This video is not really about that though. So I'm glad to see that in the future, Bethany does actually walk some of these viewpoints back a little bit, and she does broaden her views on things like sex within marriage.
Married in a few days. But as you guys are watching this video right now, she's actually already married because we're filming this in advance so that you don't have to do this on your honeymoon, right? You want me to come on your honeymoon and do some videos with you?
Oh, you better not.
She's like, I'm not even going to tell you where we're staying. Yeah, so you're actually married as we do this. So we thought it'd be cool to kind of dedicate this month to talk about marriage in honor of you getting married. I remember just thinking like, oh, like finally, it's finally here. And I think unknowingly, I was placing a lot of expectation on how awesome and perfect marriage would be afterwards. Even though I knew, like I had read books, I had been mentored, like marriage isn't going to be perfect. You're going to work through things. But I think subconsciously, I really had this idea that now that I'm married, this thing that I've been looking forward to for so long, my husband is going to meet every need. Like he is going to satisfy me in every way. Sure, we'll have arguments and disagreements, but at the end of the day, like I'm just going to fall asleep, like floating on a cloud every night.
Obviously, no one person can meet all of your needs in a perfect way. No spouse is a mind reader, and we all get tired, have crabby days, and all of that. But I don't like hearing this line of thinking in Christian circles because it oftentimes is used as a way for women in particular, sometimes men, but women in particular, to normalize and minimize their spouse's lack of engagement in their marriage. For example, if you get married and your husband doesn't really care about you in any kind of tangible way, he's not helping around the house, he doesn't help raise the kids, he's not, you are crying at night and he falls asleep peacefully right beside you every night. Like, he's not meeting your emotional needs, you're not connecting intimately, he doesn't care about you. I'm not saying throw in the towel, don't put in, the effort or like have a conversation first. But I don't think if it doesn't improve that you should be stuck in that marriage. Whereas Christian women will say, only God can meet all of your needs. So this is actually an opportunity for you to point your vision, your eyes back towards Christ. If your husband isn't meeting your needs emotionally, turn to Christ. He's the only one who can meet your needs emotionally. To some degree, I think this is good advice, right? If you are expecting your spouse to control your emotional state, or you're blaming your emotional state when it's completely unrelated on your spouse, things like that, you need to take more accountability and realize that yes, your spouse cannot literally meet all of your needs. You have to have an active role as well. But as a secular person who's engaged and who is, for them, once you live together and you're sexually, whatever, that would be considered like spiritually married to them. So I've been spiritually married for 3 years to this person. We've been living together. I have never had to have a moment where I've been like, my needs are not met. My emotional needs are not met, and I just really need to turn to other outlets to do that. I'm not saying that there aren't points throughout every marriage where you maybe need to get support from your girlfriends because your spouse just is not on the same page as you about things emotionally or whatever. You might need to go outside of yourself. I'm not saying that your spouse can 100% of the time be 100% on the same page as you, but my needs are met. This isn't something that I need like a coping mechanism, a mental strategy. in these Christian relationships, the women are really just taught to accept it, and to accept it under the guise that God is really the only one that can meet all of your needs. Again, if you're placing crazy unfair expectations on your spouse, that's fine. But your needs not being met is a real issue. And I think that this kind of ideology going into marriage sets you up for even a potentially good marriage. It sets you up to sweep things under the rug and let resentments build up, or allow for there to be a lack of communication.
You were believing in your heart
In
without
my
like
heart,
saying it necessarily.
I wasn't saying
Yeah.
this, and I didn't even know I was believing this. Your heart can go astray. And as women, specifically, God has designed us to be very relational. We can get very attached to people, and that's a good thing that God has made us relational. But the temptation and kind of the ditch that we can fall in is that we can look to earthly relationships, whether it's a husband, a boyfriend, a sibling, a best friend, whoever it is. For me, it was marriage at the time, looking to that person to be our everything.
This is one of those religious concepts they have that is just not really rooted in reality. Women are not more relational than men. Men might have a slightly different style of relationships or communication between men than women have with women, but men are just in need of socializing and support and connection and all of that as women. I think that it does a disservice to both men and women to have this viewpoint.
To ultimately satisfy us in every way. And I remember a few months into marriage, kind of waking up one day and just thinking like, oh, like, man, I am not like perfectly satisfied in every way. Like, what's going on?
What's
and
wrong?
Of wrestling in my heart. And then I started realizing as I was going to God's word and just recognizing that when God says fullness of joy is found in him alone, that full satisfaction is found in him alone, those verses that talk about that, I started seeing, oh, I'm feeling like a lack of satisfaction because I have actually taken what I was putting on God and looking to him for in my relationship. I was now placing that all on my new husband.
Once again, for the secular couples out there that are in happy relationships or marriages, I think we can say that this just doesn't really come up. Maybe this is a product of living together before marriage. I think that you learn a lot about each other when you live together. Can you have a happy marriage and never have lived together beforehand? Yeah, of course. Of course you can. But I think that these jarring moments that these people, these Christians in particular, these evangelical fundamentalist Christians, that they're experiencing post-marriage is really learning that they're not actually compatible and realizing that they didn't know they were compromising on what they wanted, but now that they live together, that they're married to this person, they realize that they have. And I think a lot of people don't realize how intense, like, living together when you don't get along, when you're not compatible, when somebody is not respectful towards the other, how bad that feels. It's like you might not even realize how bad it is until you leave, and it's like this weight is just lifted off of you, this stress. Living with somebody who you're not compatible with is very difficult. I think that we can all agree with that. And I'm not saying that you can't have a little bumps in the beginning and then work through those things. But some of these women do end up compromising. They get married and get pregnant very quickly. They realize that they are expected to take on all of the housework, including the things like the male chores, like mowing the lawn, taking out the trash, yard work, like house projects. These women, they find out that they're doing all of those things in addition to being a breadwinner. So they're doing significantly more than their husbands. They're also realizing that they're not being spiritually led. They're having to take the lead on getting out of the house on Sundays, on teaching the kids about religion, maybe whatever it is. They realize that they are actually fully leading all of this, and it's more difficult. Whereas I think, like, my life with my partner, significantly easier. So significantly easier than when I was single, and that should ideally be how it is.
Without even realizing it. And so as a result, I was feeling dissatisfied. If you're single, you think if I could get a boyfriend, then I'd be happy.
Yeah.
If I had a better boyfriend, if I had a better husband, whatever it is. it's not those things that's going to satisfy us.
Totally.
It's ultimately finding our hope in the Lord, building a relationship with him, asking him to help us desire him more. And then as we do that in humility, God promises to meet us there.
Yeah.
He promises to satisfy us there. I have experienced that being married, looking to my husband and it not working, not satisfying me, then looking to Christ and just seeing the difference that it's made in my life.
As you can see, Bethany is about to enter a marriage that has very low expectations. She's already taught that if things don't go according to plan, that she has to just kind of put up with it. And I will say that Bethany, as she grows through her content, particularly about her marriage, I like to see the direction that it's headed, but this foundation was doomed to fail from the beginning, really. This type of rigid ideology doesn't work for most people. And as you'll come to see, Bethany's husband, future husband, Dave, is somebody that is much more of a free thinker and somebody that is very educated on philosophy, on theology, on all of these topics. He knows more than me, than Bethany and Kristen combined. Finally, Bethany did get married and they do a little debrief on the wedding.
What would you say was your absolute favorite part of the wedding day?
Of the wedding day?
Maybe like the wedding.
Of the wedding, yeah. Probably, I mean, it's just so surreal walking down the aisle and then standing up there with Dave. It's like...
Was that moment different than you always imagined it? Or did it feel like what you'd always thought?
Yeah, no, it was different in the way, like, I didn't feel like I was like, oh, like, so, like, I can't believe this. You know, I was very much, like, with it. And, like, my brains were all very much there. So I was very much, like, absorbing the moment. And I think that's what was so interesting because it's like, I'm about to walk down the aisle. This is my wedding. How is this my wedding? Like, I don't get married. I've never been married, you know? So I think that was just absolutely amazing to be in that moment. I actually loved our honeymoon, and I think that's because of the intentionality of getting advice, getting wisdom, and talking to a lot of different people beforehand, getting those mixed reviews, but then realizing like, oh, we can do a lot with our mindsets and the choices that we make going into our honeymoon. So if I had the mindset like, this is gonna be the best of my life, he better make me completely happy, I probably would have been pretty
Your expectations are like
100%.
100%.
I just don't know who these women are that are going into marriage, especially in the secular world, going into marriage thinking he's going to fulfill all my desires, wishes, needs, and everything's going to be perfect and there's never going to be a bump in the road. I don't know anyone who thinks that. I think that, at least for myself, I expect my fiance to change, to grow, to whatever. And if he stays exactly the same way that he is today, that is incredible for me. That is perfect for me. But I do expect him to change and grow and for us to communicate, and maybe there will eventually be differences that there aren't now, and that's okay. You know, I expect those things, but who are these women that are going into marriage expecting these really crazy, unrealistic things from their husbands? I don't think that happens often, or at least is like a cultural issue. They make this sound like this is something that as women we struggle with. We struggle with fantasizing is what they call it, about the perfect life, the perfect husband. They actually have a whole video talking about like, this is not Disney, this is not Hollywood romance. And that is true, right? You're not going to have this perfect outcome, but what adult is expecting that? And that is why I'm trying to point out to you guys that they go into these marriages ready to kind of accept whatever, kind of willing to not address the gaps in their relationship, but to have God come in and fill those gaps. And I think what would be a lot healthier is, one, selecting a partner that you're truly compatible with, two, making sure that you can live together well, and then three is making sure that you're communicating with that partner to continue a positive, good, healthy relationship. It's frustrating watching them talk about these things early on, especially since we know that there is trouble to come. It's hard to know that Bethany has this view now, but it will kind of come back to bite her.
Because he's just human, I'm just human, and he can't satisfy me in a way that only God can. But I think because we went into it knowing, like, only God can satisfy us, we were able to just enjoy the moment. We didn't have, like, an expectation, like, we want to accomplish this or do this or experience this. It was just like, wow, we just want to enjoy being together, learn about each other, and there's no pressure or expectation for either of us. 3.5 weeks. What do you think about being married? You know, it's crazy because I I always kind of imagined marriage that I would almost like turn into this different person. I'd be like, Bethany married.
You are Mrs. Beal.
I am Mrs. Beal.
That's a little different.
You keep commenting like, oh, you're like the same person, you know? And it's crazy because I think this is what it is. Dave and I are best friends, and we were best friends before we got married. And so it's not only are we best friends, but now we're husband and wife, and we're lovers, and we love each other and everything that goes in with that. But like, I'm the same person and he's the same person, and I just feel like we're becoming better versions of ourselves.
I think that best friend basis is true. I think that that is what carries them through what you are going to see throughout this video. I think that it is what has truly made their relationship work. And a lot of Christians do not believe that you need to be best friends. That would be like your girls are your best friends and to fulfill you emotionally. Your husband is to help refine you. That would be something that other couples we cover on this channel would say. Bethany and Dave's genuine like enjoyment of being around each other is something that is powerful and unique to them. It's something that helps them throughout this video, but it's time that you guys meet Dave. So here is one of the early videos of them sharing why they waited till marriage. Here's where Dave's viewpoint comes in a little bit more, and you can see that he originally vocally does share the exact same viewpoints as Bethany, which is what we would expect with her running an online ministry that's completely focused on waiting for God's plan for your life and waiting for the right one.
We are so excited to have our husbands on here to talk about honest conversations about saving sex for marriage.
The reason we thought it would be really cool to make this video is because so many of you have actually asked us, like emailed us, DM'd us and said, what? You chose to save sex for marriage? Like all of you? Why did you choose to do that? Was it worth it? Like, that's really strange. Yeah.
Weird.
And so a lot of you have asked, so we thought it would be great just to have really candid, honest conversations. We don't have a script. We're just going to be chatting and really sharing each from our own backgrounds and stories of like why we chose that. Was it worth it? Would we do anything differently?
We believe that God made sex for a reason, obviously. And so when he says, you know, sex outside of marriage is immoral, that's not just a blanket statement because he's God and we got to obey. Like, even though that would be enough, but it's not just that. Like, he's actually introducing these guidelines and these not just guidelines, these boundaries for our good. You would think of sex as outside of marriage as more liberating and more free. Like, that's just a typical cultural narrative. Like, I need to be having sex. I need to be letting my body express itself in this way sexually, and in that way I will be liberated. I will be my truest self. I will be experiencing fullness of life. Freedom can only be experienced within proper constraints.
The idea that freedom can only be experienced within proper restraints is very common in this worldview. The idea is that God gives you these rules so that you can be healthy and live well, that when you sin, doing the, operating on your freedom and make the wrong decisions, those things actually make you sicker or limit you in the long run. They bring you hardship. And so existing within God's will isn't restrictive. It's living in the way that does give you the most freedom. I would disagree with that for a number of reasons that we're not going to get into in this video, but particularly when he's talking about sex and about being in God's will, he's saying that culture would tell you that it's more liberating to be sexually promiscuous, essentially. And I just don't really think that's true. As somebody that's about to turn 30, that has recently-ish in, culture, gone through high school, college, and then early adulthood dating life, I have never felt from anybody, and I have not only hung out with Christian people, obviously, I have never felt any sort of judgment for my abstinence, which I was until well after college. I never got any judgment, and maybe I'm lucky, but again, this was all secular people. I never faced judgment from any men about it. I never faced any judgment from women about that. If anything, people were like, that's really cool. And I would say more judgment definitely came in when I chose to actually have relationships, where it's like, now I'm living with my partners. I think yes, in culture, they might depict relationships like that, because relationships like that do happen. A lot of people do have, the vast majority of people do have premarital sex. But I think in day-to-day life, people, you know, do still have, and I use this word like loosely, but like standards about those things. People don't want to see their friends engaging in risky behavior, putting themselves at risk, having kids they can't take care of. I don't think that culture rewards that type of behavior. And on the contrary, actually, I think we still see a lot of like slut shaming in culture. There's rape culture is still very much alive and well. So yes, while we do see it depicted in TV and movies and people do engage in premarital sex or casual relationships, I don't think that that is rewarded or viewed as freedom or enacting your freedom. It's just a natural thing that people do. It's kind of, you know, people have the urge to do it and they do it. We are animals at the end of the day.
Yeah. That's what we believe. You take a fish, like a fish is the most free when the fish is in water. I've heard this great analogy, right? Fish is the most free when it's in water. The moment a fish, you know, jumps out of the water onto the land, yeah, you could say, well, it's more free than it was in the water. It's in the great big world. It's in the world. It doesn't have the constraint of water, and it will die.
We gave perspectives and thoughts. Was it worth it? Because all of us did choose that. Yeah. We all chose to wait until marriage to have sex. And so now looking back, we're 6 months looking back. Y'all are 8 years looking back. Right. Was it worth it to save sex for marriage? What do y'all think?
I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I didn't experience anything beforehand, so I can't really like say, well, man, that was really good.
I think looking back on it and thinking, wow, was it worth it to do that? Like 100%, there's not one doubt in my mind. I now, especially even being on this side of marriage, it's like absolutely, like I can say that from the core of my
waited
30 years.
Right, you waited a long time.
Yeah. 30 years to kiss or have sex or any of that, really. And I think, wow, what a beautiful moment. Like the anticipation is so beautiful and the waiting is so beautiful. Instead of viewing that as negative, like, wow, look at all those years and now look who I get to experience this. And I can tell you there's nothing sweeter than saying, wow, I'm going to wait to share this with a man who has committed everything to me. We're entering into a covenant and he has chosen to give up everything else and to love me exclusively.
Yeah, and this is true, you guys. There are benefits towards abstinence, right? If you wait till marriage, you can make sure that you are with one partner if that's important to you. You can't really make sure, things can still happen to that partner. But you can make sure, generally speaking, that you're with one person. You can, you know, have your values and all of that. But I think there's this misconception that that intimacy is sweeter, is what they'll say, in marriage than outside of marriage. And that couples who have premarital sex have a worse sex life after they're married. This is just not true. There is one study that was released, and I don't even know who it was by. I want to say it was by like a religious organization, but maybe not. But it said that like if you have premarital sex, that you are like each individual partner that you add on, you're more likely to get a divorce later on. Christians love to point to this to be like, this is studied and this is true. But it's like in the same way that like having a geriatric pregnancy triples the rate of like one specific thing. And it's like, well, okay, it's 0.00000000001 to 0.00000000003 instead. So it's like, is that, you have to actually look at the numbers and be like, is that tripling figure, like what does that actually say? Is that actually significant when we're looking at the final result there? So I think that it's important to know that, but they just view this, that they are going to have something better than other people who don't wait. And that's just not the truth. And I think that that is really misleading to people, especially if that is a reason that they choose to wait. You can choose to wait because that is in your values. You want to respect yourself and your partner. You want to be in line with your religious beliefs. You can choose to be abstinent for all of those reasons. But I don't think that thinking that your sex life is going to be better because you waited, that is just not accurate. That's not promised in the Bible. And it's not the reality for a lot of these people. A lot of these people actually have, like, I mean, this is a real statistic, is that they, well, I'm not throwing out a number, but they have a significantly higher rate in in the religious community, the fundamentalist religious communities, of things like vaginismus, making it way more difficult. Some people even getting divorces because of it, even when they waited till marriage, because the first 3 years of their marriage, they essentially were not able to be sexually intimate. So or like men hiding porn addictions. Whatever. If you guys have watched enough of my videos, I've like belabored the porn addiction point so much. I'm going to let them continue. But this is another just false understanding. And I think even though Bethany and Dave, they're adults, she's in her 30s. Dave's like 5 years younger than her, but Bethany is in her 30s. They genuinely were friends, and they have a best friendship for 5 years before they got married. So they have this basis that can carry them through, but it is hard when you have these beliefs that are so provably wrong just with life experiences.
For the rest of his life, like, that's the most romantic thing in the world, and he's not looking at me. You're not looking at me saying, like, you have to be perfect.
Yes, absolutely worth it. We've experienced so much value in our sexual relationship that that's really, especially as time goes on, even though we've only been married for several months. As time goes on, I'm finding that there is a sweetness that is actually growing. And that lines up with, neurological research. The more sex you have with one person, the more connected sex you're having with one person, the more your brain gets tied and starts to associate sex with that person. So sex outside of marriage, before the promise, before the covenant, is going to be totally different sex.
This idea that the more sex you have with one person, the more bonded you get, that might be true, but that doesn't mean that premarital sex and post, like that, signing that document, having the covenant doesn't actually say anything about the science of bonding over like repeated sexual encounters with one person. This is all to say, Dave and Bethany started off on the same page, at least verbally, at least publicly. It seemed like Dave was just as fundamentalist as her. They had the same types of views. Bethany and Dave have kids together, and their marriage lasts. They have eventually their second or third child, and they post the video I'm about to show you where they talk about a little bit of trouble in paradise. This is the first time where they steer away from the fundamentalist views and start to open up about some trouble that's going on. But nobody really would think that Dave or Bethany were deconstructing in any sort of meaningful way. It was just the first sign that there was trouble in paradise.
I don't know, you go for it.
Wow.
Hey.
I think that a lot of things have changed more recently, like in the last 6 months.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll just speak personally. I got to a point basically 4 years into our marriage where I just kind of hit a big wall of disappointment and went to get counseling.
This is unsurprising to me because we see with these Christian relationships, they have short dating, short engagements, and then they move in together and realize a lot of things about each other. Living with somebody is hard if you don't get along. Me living with my fiance has been great, but I've also lived with people where it's been extremely difficult. And I think for a lot of Christians, realizing that they actually have compromised on a lot of things that they had no idea about premaritally because of their religious views, it can be very disappointing. It's not even about the person they married, it's just about not having the full picture before they got married. Obviously, we don't know exactly the issues that are going on in this scenario between Bethany and Dave, but this disappointment, this idea of your spouse can't meet all of your needs and you need to expect that and get it from God rather than addressing the actual issue, that oftentimes can pile up for people. It can build into resentment. They can find themselves not being as honest with each other as they would want because they're really not being an honest version of themselves. They're trying to be this caricature of a Christian husband or a strong Christian wife.
Mostly thinking you should get counseling. I was mostly thinking really Bethany should get counseling. But I'm going to lead in this and make it about me and my issues. And it turned out to be a lot about me and my issues after all.
But then I did go get counseling.
But then you did go get counseling. She did go get counseling.
Yeah.
So, there's multiple different levels of how that worked out.
Yeah. I mean, I think overall I've probably been like maybe like less thinking about, oh, we need to grow as much or we have issues, more like optimistic, I guess, would you say?
About our marriage,
Yeah.
you definitely presented a more optimistic picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that in some ways you have thought more optimistically, or even if I were to ask, you would say you were happy.
Yeah.
I was miserable. I think you were like, I just don't know, I can't really make you happy. And I'm pretty happy. That's more what you were saying at the time.
Yeah.
But I was pretty miserable for good reason.
Can you unpack that a little bit more?
It wasn't her fault. Yeah, I just had a lot to work through, and I entered our relationship hoping in a lot of ways that it would give me what I wanted. And through the course of 4 years of time, I realized that my biggest problem was not what I wasn't getting out of our relationship. It was what I was bringing to our relationship and wasn't capable of in our relationship, which was very underdeveloped and very low.
This type of honesty, particularly from a Christian leader, from a man in this background, is unprecedented. It's never been seen before. This is something that really did shake the internet when it came out. Dave saying that he felt like he was the problem really was a big deal. If you think about other people we cover on this channel, it would genuinely be shocking to see them come out and take accountability like that. But the other part of it is that we haven't really seen Dave be a menace. Dave has always seemed pretty supportive of Bethany, pretty open-minded. He doesn't like to call commenters haters. He is very, open-minded and willing to listen to other perspectives. And so when he says, once again, that he was disappointed that his needs weren't being met or that he was unfulfilled in some way, I always have to ask, is this a fixable problem? We see oftentimes Christians trying to reframe fixable problems into spiritual ones that just involve them working on their own perspectives and their heart posture and their responses, rather than having a conversation that is completely appropriate and making real changes for a more sustainable relationship or lifestyle or future or whatever it might be. I'm going to let them continue, but this is really groundbreaking coming from a Christian influencer couple, especially one like Bethany, who's been so hardcore about making sure that your Christian world and life is, defined by God.
Okay, so we both went and got counseling last year separately. We didn't do marriage counseling. I found
which we should.
Yeah,
we
really want to.
That would be really fun. We would both really enjoy that.
We really want to do just like basic marriage counseling, and then we really want to do work with a sex therapist. Y'all know I've talked about that a lot. I think there's so much benefit. I think every married couple should get marriage counseling, individual counseling, and see a sex therapist. Like, that's my personal opinion.
I particularly need it. But she says everyone needs it or everyone should get it. But
I just think that, there is so much more to marriage and so much like joy and excitement and life to be had. And I think a lot of us just settle.
This is major. Kristen and Bethany typically would encourage people that if they seek therapy, that they should go to a licensed Christian counselor. Not the same thing as being licensed as like a therapist to them. So they would typically recommend you go to somebody who's actually more like a pastor. But I think I cut this part out, but Dave actually talks about how he did real therapy with a therapist who did EMDR with him, and now he's doing another type of therapy. So they're actually doing real therapy and seeking for real outside help outside of the church, which is kind of groundbreaking. When I first saw this, it really gave me hope for them that they could be potentially a powerful deconstructive voice in the space in the future, because they're definitely headed that direction. You know, typically people would say, why do you need to look further than the Bible? The Bible has everything you need. That's all the advice you need. You don't, you know, God calls himself the counselor. Why do you need to pay for counseling? They're not doing any of that. They're very pro therapy here and licensed therapy, which is huge. And that is a really exciting development for me. Obviously, Girl Defined still has a tremendous amount of work to do, and I'm not minimizing that. But that is for another video. In my videos, we just have to be so hyper specific because there are so many different topics. So particularly when it comes to the relationship between them, I am encouraged.
We are very much going in general in the same direction. I'm very, very excited and passionate about certain understandings and resources that I've come across, and you are very excited as well. So I think having that alignment is where we're at now.
Yeah.
So now we're able to speak more and more with the same language.
Totally.
The same
That's
psychological language, the same personal development language. And I think that's given us I don't know, it's really cool because we're able to do it ourselves in our own lives, but then to be able to also come together and do it in your relationship, that's, I think, become more exciting. So I would say the sense now is a lot more one of excitement, a lot more hope, and a lot more conversations where we are aligned.
And this is the power of personal and couples therapy if you need it. When you go to personal therapy, you can only learn to understand yourself better. And when you understand yourself better, you can convey that to your partner better. You can feel more understood. And when you understand yourself better and maybe difficulties you've had in communicating things, you can also understand your partner better. When you're both doing that individual work, you can only come together and be stronger. And this is the benefit of therapy. So I'm so glad that they're speaking openly about licensed therapy, real therapy, EMDR. I'm so excited that they're talking about actually getting real help outside of the church. I don't doubt that they'll find a way to turn it back around to religion in some way, shape, or form. But that being said, this is a huge, huge change. This is something that I would typically expect somebody like Bethany to be saying, we can't go to these people. This is going to put us down a dangerous path, a slippery slope. There is a big mistrust of mental health professionals in the religious community.
First question, and I'm going to go through questions, but we're going to have a conversation kind of like about each one. So, and these are questions that y'all asked. Okay, does it bother Dave that you talk so openly about sex online?
Like I mentioned, Bethany started something called The Intimate Wife shortly after she got married to Dave. The Intimate Wife was really exposing things that we've been saying about purity culture for years, but Bethany found a way to talk about it while still saying that church was good and that the Bible had no problems and the presentation of it had no problems. She just felt that we needed to be more open, and she actually got a lot of backlash for this by speaking openly about how Christian women are basically doomed to have terrible sex lives because of the lack of education, the lack of confidence around their bodies, and then their husbands too, their lack of understanding. They even go as far as to interview a couple who and this is horrific, you guys, I made a video on this, they interview a Christian couple who now give therapy to other Christian couples. The husband learned female sexual anatomy when his friend, who is a doctor, explained it to him using his own infant daughter, using the genitals of his own infant daughter. So that is horrific. That's disgusting. That is abuse, right? We're not even going to get into that in this video, but that is how poor the education is. This is how these relationships can be set up to fail. They don't know these things. They're told not to even have conversations about these things. So Christians are getting into marriages where they don't know what their own sex drive is, much less their partners. They aren't talking about things like maybe one of the people is comfortable with watching adult content or is doing it regularly and isn't willing to quit, whereas the other one is super against that and feels like it's cheating. There's just a lot of likes, dislikes, expectations about sex in a marriage. Those conversations are not allowed to be had, but the Christian worldview makes Christians have expectations about these things. You're told that your spouse owns your body, essentially. You're told that, wives, your body belongs to your husband, and then husbands, your body belongs to your wives. You're told not to withhold sex from each other. This is why you see other couples saying things like that they have sex every single day, even if they're in a fight, even if one of them is really sick, because they believe that that's their best way to fight spiritual warfare and stay together and serve each other in that way. There are weird views around these things. So Bethany really makes a point with her content in her early marriage to talk about these things, to talk about misconceptions, to talk about how it might not be good or enjoyable or fun if you're coming from this background and it's your wedding night and your honeymoon. You might not be having a good time. That's okay, is what they'll say. And yeah, yes, if you don't have the best time ever, that is okay, but these things are preventable with baseline education that everyone else is getting, because the rest of the world is not told to just shut down mentally any sort of thought process about these things. So people are a lot better prepared. So we see Bethany already doing a lot of these things, taking steps forward, being very progressive in the area of relationships and sexuality for her. I mean, she still is anti-LGBTQ or premarital sex or other, so she's not really that progressive, but from where she started, there is certainly a jump that had people talking at this time. The reality is, though, that for her to talk openly about these issues, people had to understand, even though she didn't say Dave's name, that when she's talking about her negative sexual experiences and how unsatisfied she was and how unenjoyable things were, that they're talking about Dave. And so that had to hit his ego kind of hard. She's basically saying she had such a negative experience that it changed her worldview on this topic, and she feels like she needs to speak out about it. That would definitely be painful as the spouse, even if you agree with their message and you support them.
The answer is yes, but in a good way. So I am proud of how open and honest Bethany is about sex, how she's owning her sexuality herself, and rather than expecting or requiring somebody to give her something in order for her to be sexually fulfilled. But because Bethany does talk a good bit about sex, it indirectly does reflect on me in our sexual relationship, and it challenges my needy desire to be thought of as competent and strong. So something she says could expose me as sexually inadequate, or cause people to question, like, oh, what kind of a sex life do they have? How good is he in bed? Does he even have what it takes? All of those things that I would question about myself, of course, I project onto, well, that's what other people could think of. But the awesome thing about that is this creates an opportunity for me to face that in myself.
Dave is a stronger person than I am, because I personally would never talk about, if I was having issues in that area, I would never discuss that online personally. If my spouse were to be doing that, I would not be okay with that in any way. I would not want them to go on the internet. So Dave is stronger than me and very open-minded. He is very progressive. And this is where people are starting to say, wow, is he deconstructing? He seems very progressive in some areas. He's very pro-Bethany in a way that does not feel like a standard Christian marriage. We see him actually totally analyzing the Barbie movie and having positive views of the messaging, whereas Bethany has a really negative view and dogs on feminists. he has a much more supportive view of women and of the hardships they go through in the world. Like, he is much more of a feminist than she is.
I mean, the reason I talk about sex online is because of like my desire for other women to know, like, there are more, like, we all have questions. What do you and Bethany disagree on, and how do you handle the difference of opinions? Okay, so this is kind of the stuff, like, I don't know, a lot of people don't want to talk about, like, the genuine side of things, but I feel like it's good too, so we're going to go for it.
But that's the content people like.
I know. So what do we disagree on, and how do we handle the difference of opinion?
Oh, we still disagree on the end times? Yeah. I mean, that's an easy one. I use strong language. We talked about that before. And Bethany does not agree with that. She calls me she's like, it's a, what do you say? It's like a homeschool. It's like the homeschooler who kind of is like stretching his verbal muscles by using strong language because he can.
Strong
he doesn't have a
language.
problem
Bad words.
Bad words.
I'm sure a lot of people hold this view, but particularly in the evangelical Christian church, people do believe that swearing or cursing is wrong, that when the Bible talks about cursing other people, that they are literally referring to using curse words, not what the Bible is referring to, but that is one line of thought. And then also there is a verse in other verses as well, but there is one verse in the Bible that also talks about no foul language coming from your mouth, and another saying that from the wellspring of the heart, the mouth speaks. So when you're swearing, it's seen as an indication that there is something spiritually negative going wrong. You are not being a good representative of Christ. And the Bible also says to be all things to all people, to kind of observe the boundaries of other people or the spiritual convictions of other people. And so if you are with people that are anti-swearing, like your spouse, the Christian response would be to not swear around those people because they have conviction about it. This is another area where people are like, is he deconstructing? Because the Christian, he should really be as the Christian husband, leading them spiritually in these things. So for Bethany to be more intense on it is kind of, most Christians in her circle would probably see this as a misalignment of God's original design for marriage and for spiritual leadership in a spouse relationship.
Yeah, definitely we disagree on that. I view it as
bad words. Strong. I prefer strong language that helps communicate what I mean.
And I think if you have to use that language to communicate, you're a poor communicator.
Oh, okay. Well, I hear you, but would you rather use 25 words or just one? And you communicated just as well.
Okay, so Dave, I didn't bring a spit up thing, a towel. Dave did not use strong language when we started dating. I don't use language. I did a little
bit before we started dating. There were times.
I don't use language. I got religion. Use curse words.
I got religion when we got together, which was a bad idea.
So, okay. I called someone a jerk yesterday and someone got mad at me for it. But it was because a dad literally was...
Wait, you called him a jerk?
No, not to his face. Oh. A dad was like so rude to me at the park with Davey, and he was like very aggressive in his words. And so later when I was talking on social media, I was like, he was a jerk. I didn't know a better way to describe it, and someone got mad about that.
That's the best place to talk about people.
So, I don't have a problem really with calling someone a jerk or like that level of language, but he uses bad words. And like, I don't like necessarily to be, I don't like that in front of me, or I don't like that language, like to be communicated to in that way. And I definitely don't like it in front of the kids.
I think this is a valid boundary to set. I definitely don't want my spouse like ever angrily using swear words at me. I don't care if he uses it in day-to-day conversation, but definitely not like angry. That can speak for itself, and vice versa. I don't like swear at him. So swearing versus swearing at, we don't swear at each other. I think that that's important. And then also I do swear. You guys have seen me swear in my videos. If I had kids, that would be done immediately. I know there are differing views on this and whatever. I don't think if your kid is cussing that it's like they're doomed or anything like that. I'm not trying to overreact, but specifically for myself, and if I have kids, they will not be around swearing. So I can kind of get where she's coming from, just like at least when they're little. Like once they're old enough to swear, I will swear around them. Does that make sense? But not in the early stages, and their kids are little. So I get where she's coming from there, but once again, even her allowing him to kind of swear not around the kids casually when they're just around each other, that is probably a big change for her. And this, once again, it just is signs pointing to Dave's deconstruction. But for most people, the part of us that was holding us back from believing that he was that you'd think it would ruin the marriage. This is a really big deal in the Christian faith. God doesn't sanction divorce based on differing religious views, but typically the person that leaves the religion will then choose to divorce. So it wouldn't necessarily be like Bethany's choice in that case. People see him dedicated to the marriage, dedicated to parenthood, still being there with Bethany, and so people felt like then he can't be deconstructing because otherwise we would see the kind of fallout in the marriage.
But something that I have really come to is like, we are two individual people. Yes, we're married and we have a covenant that we're a part of, but I am not going to force him to be a version of him that I think I don't know, want or need. Like I think it's so important to allow each other to just like be on their own journey and learn and grow themselves and not like become bitter or like, I'm going to be super manipulative until you change or do what I want to do. It's like, no, he's got the Holy Spirit and he can do like, I'm not going to be his Holy Spirit. I'm not going to be his mom. I'm his wife and I love him. And I'm not going to force him to be everything that I think he needs to be in order for us to have like a great relationship. So
Dave made comments in that video that sounded like he had almost already left religion to me, but then she makes comments like, we both have the Holy Spirit. And she also says things like, I'm not his mom, and whatever. That's all good to hear. That all sounds healthy. But it makes you go back and forth on the deconstructing. They never came out and directly addressed it until they appeared on 24 Hours with Paul and Morgan. This is really where shit hit the fan. Paul and Morgan dove in deep into Dave and Bethany's differences, and that was really the bulk of the episode. And it left people asking a lot of questions. People made videos saying that they basically all ganged up on Dave because he is the one that is deconstructing and is the most progressive. And in part, it did feel that way when you watch it. Don't worry, I'm going to show it to you guys in this video. But the video had so much backlash that Bethany and Dave had to make a video responding to it. It's now deleted, but I got the full footage, so I'll show it to you after the Paul and Morgan video, where then they really come out about the truth about what's going on in their relationship, in their marriage, in their spiritual walk. In some ways, it is a little bit inspiring how it's handled, but in other ways, it's also devastating, and I think you guys will be interested in seeing it. After this video from Paul and Morgan that you're about to see, Bethany and Dave essentially disappeared off of the internet. They responded to it, but stopped creating videos together. We don't know how Dave is doing or what he believes today. And last I heard, they were enjoying the last summer together happily, but that's all that I know.
You, from talking to you briefly, would be the type of Christian that I would push back on. Like,
all the time. Well, you're not the only one.
say like, yeah, we started hanging out. I was like, hey, Dave, it's the cussing, man. Like, why are you cussing? And then I maybe would quote a Bible verse, like, let no unwholesome talk come out of your mouth.
Okay.
What you know what I mean? Like, oh, I didn't hear what he said. Did he just cuss at me?
Shut up, mother.
Oh, wow.
When someone says, well, what does the Bible say? I typically will hear a certain type of what I would call biblicism underlying that, a theory of the Bible that often we just take as self-evidently true. This is what the Bible is. A lot of this stuff is actually, it's more difficult when you actually get down to the conversations, I have found.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Dave has more understanding about these things than Paul and Morgan combined, more than me and Bethany and Kristen combined. That's saying a lot. Not so much about Paul and Morgan, but Paul and Morgan have no idea what's going on. You can clearly tell he is speaking way above their language. They have no idea what biblicism or any of the relativism, sorry. They have no idea what those things are. So it just cracks me up to watch this. But you get a much better idea of where Dave is actually at.
It's easy for each side. Oh, you're a fundamentalist. Oh, you're a progressive. It's easy to kind of hurl like, oh, progressives are just relativists, or fundamentalists are just dogmatists. But the reality is, I think we all have beliefs that we think are true, and we all have relativisms operating as well. When your view is one that the Bible should just be this clear thing we all sort of have access to, and the Holy Spirit just teaches us what to believe, well, you got tons of groups out there who all claim the Holy Spirit as their teacher, coming to different conclusions.
A lot of groups, but you do see a lot of unity as well around the fundamental doctrines. And then there, to me at least, and then you see the splitting with the secondary issues, and that's one of the goals of this series. But yeah, man, you're a deep guy. Have you ever? You're familiar with the expression "Don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out"?
I've heard a version.
I feel like some deconstructionists would fit into that.
Don't be so open-minded your brain falls out is a wild thing to say with somebody who's sharing openly about what they're going through. The reality is that this type of talk is clear deconstructive language to somebody like Paul, Morgan, Bethany, and Kristen. That's why they're so surprised to hear him swearing or saying these types of things. And what Paul is trying to say is, you are losing the plot, you are going down a slippery slope, and you are going to wind up falling away from God. That is essentially what he's saying by don't be so open-minded your brain falls out. But I do think it's funny because Paul and Morgan could definitely use some more open-mindedness themselves in their own life. Dave also has a much better understanding of the Bible than them as well, so they can't even respond in any kind of critical way to the types of things he's saying. I think the short response from Paul is truly because he doesn't know what the fuck Dave just said to him.
He said he's not done with y'all either. So did he really shock y'all? What did he shock y'all with?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dave shocked us.
We were shocked.
What was shocking?
How different you guys are.
Yeah.
Because you seem very much at peace with him working through this stuff and figuring out like where he stands on things. What do you think? Why do you think you're so at peace with that?
I mean, from the beginning, honestly, like a huge goal of mine in marriage was to not try to control my husband, and I had seen that done like so much, and it seems like there's a happy marriage on the front, all of these conservative values and all of this, like going to the word and stuff. But then behind the scenes, there was like a lot of anxiety or just like a lot of dysfunction. I didn't really care about Dave, like putting like, I mean, I did, but like, I didn't want him to just appear a certain way for like my own ego or image or whatever. Yeah. And he grew up in a family where he knows the Bible frontwards and backwards, he said he's read it multiple times. Yeah. Too. Mm-hmm. Even just like in the years that we've been married, he's, if he commits to something, he does it. So he did like 2 years back to back where he did like Bible reading plan, and he like never, he absolutely finishes it. And like we'll do like Bible trivia games, and he like knows, he knows all of it. Mm-hmm. He's like extremely like highly churched, like highly in the word, and the fruit of some of that, just the anxiety and the struggle and the just I don't know, it's just been difficult. Dave is someone who is constantly seeking outside advice, and the mentors, our pastors, the men in his life, I highly respect and I think are really amazing. And so to me, he's a man that is very full of integrity. And so instead of having an interest in reading certain books or learning from certain teachers and me just being I don't like that, don't show that to me, I want to be more inviting of that and being hey, I want to know, share that with me. And to be honest, who he is as a man now, and his I don't know, how he loves me, how he treats our family, his stability as a leader has only improved. And so I feel like I have a better life.
Yeah.
So I guess it's something I'm not really afraid of, because
maybe some of this practical stuff that he's learning now was missed as he was growing up, and so it's almost like rewinding, and although not all of it's like from a Christian perspective, to me it seems like it's been really beneficial in his life. And now we don't listen to all the same things and read all the same things, and we don't approach how we if I want peace in my life, I am very much like go to the word, and like my relationship with Christ is where I find that. And that's not always the case for him, but like it doesn't bother me that much.
This is very big of Bethany. To be clear with you guys, the fundamentalist evangelical view on something like this would be that you as the Christian wife stays in the marriage and you show your husband God's love by submitting to him as you would to a Christian husband. You just do the exact same thing. Nothing would change for you as the wife. And the idea is that your behavior would lead him back to God when he sees what a good wife you are and like feels so loved by you. He will know that there is a God and he will be led back to Christ. So she is doing essentially what the Bible says to do, but culturally the judgment is still there for both parties. And it almost is seen as like a fault on Bethany. And you'll see Paul and Morgan kind of use this language that's saying that her response to it is wrong. What else can she do? She can't force him to believe in something that he doesn't. She can't force him to believe in God. But Paul and Morgan definitely come back with their own viewpoints on all of that.
How do you feel like it will affect kids, like your all's kids, as they start to get older, start asking questions, like they ask him questions and about the Bible or about just like, you know, whatever, something very stereotypical that like David, you might see totally different on. How do you guys think you'll approach that?
Yeah. Well, he actually initiated and led us switching churches. So we were going to kind of like a basic Bible-believing, non-denominational type of church. And it's the church I grew up in. I was very comfortable there. And he wasn't super excited about it. And he really was the one who initiated us leaving. So now we go to a small Lutheran church, which was so different than anything I grew up with. But that's kind of like as much as he might read all these books about philosophy or whatever, I don't know, all this other stuff, he is like the one who led our family into this church that is amazing. And I have learned and grown like so much as a Christian, and it's a place where I'm so excited to raise my kids and to raise a family. And I think that if I had tried to control that, like, no, I want to stay at our previous church, like that's scary to move churches, and now we're in this Lutheran church with all of this liturgy and, you know, like infant baptism and all these crazy things, we wouldn't have made this transition if I had like dug my heels in. But I was excited about it, and it was, even though it was a little scary, and that's like all because of Dave's leadership, you know. And so I feel like our kids are in a wonderful place. Like, although we might not agree on everything theologically or how we go about practically getting help, like he to me is someone who is like very much has like a true genuine faith. It just looks really different from mine. But I view my kids as having like an incredible dad, and I think they're going to be like extremely stable and not manipulated into the faith, or not like coerced into like, this is, you need to look this way and act this way, and then when they get older, like ditch it. I think
most Christian parents like Paul and Morgan would not like to hear something like this. The idea is that you raise your kids with that belief and with as limited of outside influence as possible, so that they choose Christianity when they grow up, that they get married young and raise children in the church, that they never depart from their faith. That's the whole idea. So for her to say, my kids will have more of an option and more of a freedom to choose, that is something that is a deconstructive type of viewpoint. People like Paul and Morgan would hear that, most Christians would hear that and go, yeah, not for my kid. My kid does not need to have exposure to those type of things, especially coming from another one of their parents.
I think they have a dad who's extremely authentic and genuine, and in the long run, to me, that's like going to go so much further than him looking like this, you know, ideal Christian man, whatever that is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, very interesting.
Morgan's like, no. No.
Hey, it's your all's marriage. You gotta figure it out.
This is exactly the judgmental type of attitude coming from evangelical Christians that I'm sure Bethany and Dave wanted to avoid online and have avoided online since this video with Paul and Morgan posted. And don't worry, that video's not over. There's more to show you. Best parts are yet to come, trust me. And after that, their video clearing things up, which is now taken down, that made people even more upset, Christians more upset. Morgan saying, it's your marriage, y'all gotta figure it out. After Bethany just gave this beautiful kind of, testimony of their marriage and how they're making things work, it's judgmental, it's tearing her down, it's not a kind way to respond, especially to somebody that could be going through marital stress or marital problems. What do people want Bethany and Dave to do? They have to be respectful of each other. She can't force him to be a spiritual leader if he doesn't believe in God. But I'll let them continue because up to this point, they're still kind of making random claims that Dave is a Christian, even though they're talking about him like he's not.
It only happened with Morgan and I, and does happen with us. People online like to decide which one they're going to agree with more than villainize the other person. And I was kind of reading comments on a video and I saw, I hope Bethany's husband finds happiness.
Oh, I've heard that one before.
That's been our story. I hope Morgan finds happiness.
Yes.
And when you hear it, freedom, when you hear that so many times, it can start to...
Oh yeah, sometimes I feel a little sorry for myself. Yeah, 100%. It's not.
Expound on that if you don't.
It ain't king energy, but it's something.
It's not what?
It's not king energy. It's
okay.
It's not. It's
King energy.
Already feeling sorry for myself, and then hearing one of those and be like, "You're damn right."
Wow.
I got a man.
Well, but that's a scary thought for me if I were to think like Morgan's over there thinking
it's possible for someone to feel bad for them, feel sorry for themselves.
Have you felt that way when you get all these messages of? No, let's be real. Like of messages of you, Morgan. What is it? I hope Morgan finds happiness, and that's said in so many different ways.
I would say that
Please say no. Please say. I'm being real. I hope these aren't sticking with you.
We're gonna have a check-in.
Like Morgan could do so much better. That type of stuff.
No. None of that stuff is. I've never been like. Oh,
and then we're getting back to you guys.
And none of that stuff about like you're being mentally or emotionally abused. Like I'm like, you guys are idiots. Like I'm sorry, but idiots.
At this point, people's opinion of Dave was pretty positive online. He had released the Barbie movie review, which is not included in this video, but I've mentioned earlier, where he saw the movie for what it was. He talked about the struggles women face, how feminism is not a bad thing, and people are really positive at this point towards Dave. They feel like he is more progressive, he's more accepting, and the comments that people make, he's actually in some cases interacting with people, hearing them out, learning more, having good discussions with people. Whereas people like Paul, Morgan, Bethany, and her sister Kristen of Girl Defined, they respond to any sort of criticism or negativity, often by calling the people haters. This is frustrating as somebody, not me personally, but for the people that are Christians or similar to their views, but are commenting valid criticisms, because they want to engage in a dialogue with them, but they're kind of just turned away by saying, oh, you're just a hater, you're just overreacting, you're just wanting to be mean to us, essentially. Dave is much more open to these conversations, but at the same time, people are also a little bit nicer to him. So I can see where it would be less upsetting for him, but also I think it is the way in which Bethany and Paul and Morgan have handled criticism in the past that has gotten it to the point where it's at today, because they've completely ignored it for over a decade of their content, whereas Dave recently came into the picture and very quickly started educating himself.
Total idiots.
Stuff online, I think the part that gets like the comments and all of the messages, like I'm the villain, and I think the only time it gets frustrating for me is if just being honest, is like when he's like it starts interacting with them, and sometimes I feel like starts like they're actually really nice people and all of this, and almost like it feels like it's now like them against me.
And it's less of like, he's not upset or mad at me or anything. It's just more like, oh, we should be sympathetic. But at the end of the day, it's like, in some of these cases, I feel like these people really do want they do want to see our relationship fall apart. Sure. Even though they might be like, we hope you and Bethany stay together, they don't really hope that.
Right.
And that's kind of become apparent with a lot of these people that it's not. And so I think that's frustrating because I really don't believe they have pure motives or pure intentions or really care about either of us.
This could be another reason that up until this point, Dave and Bethany haven't explicitly said that he's leaving Christianity. Bethany might feel like people will use this to try to tear them apart, to encourage Dave to leave or encourage him that finding somebody else who's also agnostic or atheist would be better for him. So I could see her having real fear here. And I want to be clear, I know many people who are in interfaith relationships and they've made it work. They've made it beautiful. And although I think that Bethany has a lot of harmful views, that doesn't mean that she couldn't unlearn them kind of alongside him, deconstructing at the same time to become better together, even if it does involve her retaining her faith to some degree. As somebody that's on the internet, it's hard getting criticism on the internet, you guys. It's never fun. But I do think that the difference between, I align more with Dave than with the other three in this video, because I think that when I receive criticism on the internet, I do have to ask myself, like, is there validity to this, right? And if there is, then I have to deal with that. I can't just broadly label everything hate and not ever improve myself. I'm putting myself out there on the internet, and yes, it is hard to have a lot of opinions, but I also don't want to be blind to my own issues. And so when somebody points something out, I do need to look at that. And that's more of Dave's attitude. And I think that also does go over with people better, just showing that you're open to the conversation and genuinely then making changes. That goes a long way, because nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes and we all get it wrong sometimes. And I think that people online in particular are very willing to be forgiving to influencers and creators if they will do the work to make the necessary changes.
And so it's, to me, that's frustrating if there is, and this just be like being real. I want to feel like my man is like standing up for me and like he is like, you know, forget them. They're like, why are they coming after my girl? And so when you're like compassionate toward them, it's kind of like, how could you? Yeah, it makes me like, I feel bad. Like I choose to, but it's hard.
Yeah, so in order to deal with that, because I don't want to, one, compromise my own integrity by dropping the fact that I think that a lot of these people are not as evil as sometimes we talk about, on the one hand, but I also do want to be a very strong, rock for Bethany and stand up for her as her husband.
That video, to me, when I watched it, I kept getting confused by them making comments like, the Holy Spirit is in Dave, or Dave is still a strong spiritual leader, or my family's not upset because we haven't left Christianity. I believe that Bethany hasn't or hadn't, and but Dave, the way that they talked about him, the conversations they had, it felt very clear that he had left Christianity, that he was no longer a Christian and was doing more of a cultural Christianity thing, which is what a lot of interfaith couples will do, which is where, like, they could see the benefit of being part of a church community still, and so they are still going to go to church and kind of present this unified front as a family, even though one of them does not believe in it and has made it clear kind of publicly to others that they don't believe in it, but they're still going to go, show up, and be a positive community member. That is the vibe that it gave to viewers, and the backlash grew to the point that had to release a video talking about it. And when they did, it honestly shocked me.
We've already restarted a couple times because we hate ourselves.
We were the stiffest grandmas you've ever seen in your life.
Anyway, I'm not going to act out the grandma, but
we're like not stiff people, but we've tried to film this like 3 times, and we're not ourselves at all. We're just like this. We're like, and then Paul and Morgan came, and how was yours?
I'm locked 13 layers in my mind castle.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I have no space in here.
Okay, that's because
Are we filming?
We don't ever film together. We need to film more.
We're so bad at this, but we'll get better.
Okay, this was when we went out on our very first date ever. my dream, I told you this, and this might be like really forward. On our very first date ever, I told you about like how I thought we were like really special and unique because we were really good friends at that point.
In this video, they seem both stressed, but also the most in love I've ever seen them. I want to let you know this video was deleted. I've mentioned that before. And so I had to pull this from another creator who is named Bethany Bethany Michael. I'm going to show you guys her on my phone. That is why it's grainy, because hers was down in the corner. She has 5,000 subs. I love her content, you guys. This is her, and yeah, here's like, I don't know if you can see that. It's Bethany Michael. She does great videos. It's called Snarky. She says snarky with substance. She really only gets snarky when there are kids involved. I personally really like the level of snark in it, but just letting you know that's the reason the video quality's poor. Bear with me. It basically does not exist in its entirety like this anywhere else on YouTube that I could find. And so yeah, here we go. I'm just gonna keep going, but I like to point out they do seem so in love here, so happy, and like they probably have gotten over a little bit of this communication hump, so I'll let them continue.
And how I thought we could have like a YouTube channel or do something like that. And we've dabbled
we have tried along the way a little bit.
But it's still my dream. Like, that's my dream, to do like YouTube or social media with you. So anytime we get to, even if we don't do it that often, so we have to kind of get back. This is so fun.
Yeah, we have to get our YouTube legs back.
You just have so much to offer the world, and I love how we are together, and I feel like this side of me is so much more of like my real self, like the 24 hours with, and because I'm not teaching like so much of what people see of me on the Girl Defined channel, and it might be just like change it, but it's like
so don't do it.
It's like a different vibe. It's like teaching. It's like I'm a mentor, I'm a big sister. It's a different vibe, but this is really fun because it's just like whenever we are doing stuff, it's more like sharing our life, and I love it. So
all right, with that, let's get into our experience with, what did you say?
It's like, let him know. Convince him.
You want them to convince me?
Okay, this is my pitch for Dave. First of all, Dave, I would love for you to come on the channel anytime. I've already reached out to Girl Defined, and they very politely declined. This was like last summer or spring, and they said she said, we're really enjoying our summer. So respectfully declining. Love that for them, that they're enjoying their summer. I want to interview you guys, though. I want to talk to you guys. That is a standing open invite. If you ever change your mind, just let me know. But I would love for Dave to make his own content on philosophy. He obviously has a very, very powerful base knowledge on these things, and I think that he could be a very powerful voice in the deconstruction space, especially because of his ties to Girl Defined. Beyond that, I think that Dave and Bethany doing a channel where they talk about these interfaith issues and how they handle them would be very interesting for me to see, and would probably be very helpful for a lot of other people who are also trying to make interfaith marriages work. More and more often, we're seeing Christian couples getting married at a young age where one later deconstructs. For many, that ends in divorce, but maybe people like Bethany and Dave can be the mentorship or the example of how to make that work and love each other, even though you do not believe the same thing anymore.
Hey, let's get into this. 24 Hours with Paul and Morgan. They were here for the weekend, and we took a heck ton of footage. They took a heck ton of footage.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, okay, shout out to Paul and Morgan. They were awesome, and they did such a good job facilitating our conversations and running around with the camera and being very non-invasive about it, and they were very respectful to all of the random stipulations about, don't film our kids, and
don't film our neighborhood, don't film our privacy.
So we wanted to kind of keep some of that and keep it more focused on conversations and things like that. But it wasn't originally gonna, I wasn't gonna be in it nearly that much originally. Do you want to say what it was gonna be? I don't want to.
Oh, this is quick. Crack. Okay.
So
not my video.
It was supposed to be Girl Defined. It was supposed to be like Kristen and Bethany, 24 hours with Girl Defined. Long story short, we couldn't make the schedules work, like even literally over the months, because Kristen is an extremely busy person and she homeschools her 2 boys full time. They're just extremely busy. We literally could not make the 3 of our schedules work together. And so it ended up being like, hey, we'll come stay with Bethany and we'll film your life. And then maybe we'll be able to see Kristen a little bit, which they were only really able to see her for that little bit when we were doing the podcast stuff. So it just kind of like morphed. It really wasn't supposed to be a video about like Bethany with Girl Defined and then Dave, but it kind of became a video truly about me and then my life with you. So that was not part of the plan.
Yeah, and I kind of saw it, the wheels turning in Paul's head, you know, as we're starting to have conversations here, you know, at our house and about some of our differences, and he's like, "Hey, Morgan, I think this might be a good direction," you know. And then
it was like evolving as they were here.
They were great. Paul and Morgan were both a real joy to have here, and they were up for just about anything. They had hardly gotten here in our house, and I was like, all right, cold plunge, you up for the cold plunge? Driving around and just having these conversations with them, and they were great question askers. And
well, it started with you. I picked them up at the airport. We weren't filming at all. We come here and they knew, like, I had to leave right away to go film with Kristen. Like, we have very limited recording spots because we're both moms and it's super busy. Like I mentioned, her schedule. So we literally, Kristen and I record like once a month together, and it just happened to be that day. So I was like, I have to go. And then Paul and Morgan were going to come for the last hour, and then they'd come home with me and we start filming. So Dave was kind of like, they weren't planning on hanging out with you because you were so busy. But as soon as they walked in the door, they were like, hey. And so it ended up being like this.
It's time for break.
It was this whole afternoon, like hours with you, that was completely like unplanned.
There was a lot of backlash on Paul and Morgan for putting the video out, saying that they should have known that it would make them look bad, make Bethany and Dave look bad. And so I think this is what this beginning part is really about. I think they're really trying to say, look, the video wasn't supposed to be about this in the beginning. The direction changed. We were aware that the direction had changed and we were okay with that. And Dave made the decision to show up more in the video. He didn't have to do that. They're kind of giving Paul and Morgan a lot of grace here, personally, more than I would give them, because I do think that they were rude to them in the video. But yeah, they're saying kind of all positive things. I'm going to cut some of the Paul and Morgan glazing out.
Really good conversations. Actually, I think really benefited our marriage in a lot of ways.
In the long run.
She's like, I have faith that someday.
No, I didn't mean that.
There will be, have been some benefits of said weekend.
I was thinking the long run since that video till now is
okay. This is the long run.
This is the long run.
I got you. Okay. That's great. And I would say the number one benefit is just honesty, just bringing up the sorts of conversations that that we have, but you know, we hadn't had conversations like we did in the video in that topic. We had very honest conversations in other areas of our lives, but in that specific topic of specifically like the outward facing Bethany and the world and Girl Defined and the critics and all this stuff, we hadn't really gone there for a while like that deeply.
Because we know we disagree.
Because we know there are some disagreements. And
so it's like, why rehash it? We haven't ever gotten to the point where we see eye to eye. So it's like, we know, it's just kind of like we agree to disagree. And that encompasses a lot, not just like how we view in that conversation. It was like the haters, but it's like beliefs, what I do with Girl Defined, the stuff I write about, talk about. We've known we don't see eye to eye convictions wise on some of that stuff.
For Dave to not agree with her on the direction for her career and her ministry would be really, really hard. This would be a big problem in a lot of marriages. So I can understand why they would have delayed talking about this. And it sounds like the Paul and Morgan video is really what triggered them to have these deeper conversations. I think that it is definitely important to be open about these things, but I can see why when you grow up fundamentalist, there would be a lot of fear about being honest about your opinions and your beliefs. I mean, you can even see just from Paul and Morgan's reaction how much judgment was involved in some of their responses.
After the hard conversation, we've had a couple of hard weeks.
Yeah.
In the sense that like we've just pressed into a lot of this stuff rather than
rather than just like moving on, we've just like really been like, hey, it's been more of like let's just like be super honest and like seek outside counsel. We had our literally a few days after Paul and Morgan were here, you had our pastor come over. We literally were sat in our living room for like 3 hours. He was just kind of like a third party listening to like the 3-hour version of what you saw at the dinner table, like, and so much more, just trying to like figure out like, okay, what do I need to change? Does he need to change? What if we just can't, like, we just see differently? How can we love each other still? How can we give each other grace? And it's been like one thing like that after another, I feel.
Yeah. So a lot of people are wondering, Dave, to what he sounds like he's deconstructing, to what degree?
Yeah.
And you have people that are kind of more like, oh, he's a Christian but nice, or he's like not, he's just compromised his faith, or he doesn't have strong faith, or whatever.
Or some people are mad at Paul for like insinuating
mad at Paul for
that you're deconstructing.
Yeah, which I would say in that case, with Paul and I, we also had more private conversations, and so Paul's operating with more information than what you see in the video of like a new level of mental crisis that week that Paul and Morgan were here. And it started before they got here with some random men's group stuff I was doing, and as well as certain questions that I was asking even while Paul and Morgan were here. I was asking some people that know me pretty well, or what are my greatest weaknesses, and you know,
you were just like, you were inviting all this criticism.
I was inviting a lot of criticism. I did this thing called, you know, this like hot seat thing where you sit there and these guys kind of like, you stand or sit there and the guys poke at you and try to kind of get you to, you know, get provoked, and then we talk about it, you know.
The practice of the hot seat where people are like yelling flaws at you and trying to, really what they're doing is trying to break you down so that they can build you back up better. It's been like widely labeled as abusive, emotionally abusive, mentally abusive. It is really harmful. They drop this so casually, like this is just what his men's group at church did. Bizarre. Let's not normalize that in any context. I think that's really, really strange. I don't love to hear that they're doing that. You guys never need to put yourself in the hot seat where a bunch of random people are just shouting their opinions at you. Therapy.
I've been circling deconstruction, just to use the term loosely. I'm okay with the term.
I'm not against it.
You're not against it.
I'm not against it at all. I think there's this misconception that I'm against it, but it's more just like when you typically hear the term deconstructing, like I typically think of someone like completely deconstructing from their faith. And yes, I am deconstructing certain parts of my faith, but I personally am still very much like a believer in Jesus, and very much think what the, you know, like trying to understand the word and living it out practically is important. So I don't want to be labeled. I don't really care for the label, I guess.
Yeah, I'm okay with the term for sure, and I'll often use it. I know it's popular and it's kind of, you know, rings a bell, so it's kind of easy, but there are kind of two different types of deconstruction that I think of when it comes to the popular stuff that is kind of happening in this trend, the trend that's happening. And one is, it's almost like you're consciously deconstructing in the sense of you're actively questioning beliefs and like, is this true? Is that true? And it's almost like you're taking things apart. And then there's the kind of deconstruction where people describe it as pulling a thread, and it's just kind of like the whole thing falls apart. It's like you're not even going towards everything. It's just kind of like everything's sort of crumbling, and then you're just in this crisis mode and nothing's left. And I would say for me, it feels a little bit more towards the first one, but I'm sure there's probably a mix. The things that changed for me through the course of that weekend with Paul and Morgan, and actually we were at Zach and Kristen's one night, and there was some conversation there, and through the course of all this, and then these moments of like surrendering, trying to just find my identity in Christ and get strength through that, and to be more emotionally stable, and all of this stuff. It basically, something broke over that week, and I didn't feel tied down anymore to like basically anything that would keep me from fully questioning my beliefs and my faith.
He is describing something that is very, very common in deconstruction. Honestly, I think it probably mirrors if you've deconstructed your process or mine, which is that you kind of push the thoughts off and push them off, and then eventually you reach a point where it's like, it's too much, and you just, the reasons for deconstructing are, it's like the scale tips and it's just like, bam, down to the other end. That's almost what it feels like, where it's all this fear and then suddenly you're like, I can't do this pretending anymore. And frankly, I'm not trying to be rude, but if I spent a weekend with Paul and Morgan, that would definitely do it for me. Their level of fundamentalism, of rigid religious belief, would absolutely push me to just be like, yeah, whatever association I have to that, I don't need it anymore. So it's funny to me a little bit that they spent this weekend with him, and then magically he's like, I can't fake this anymore. Like, I've got to stop pretending. From the beginning of this video, over an hour and a half ago, we saw Bethany with these really fundamentalist views, the same types of views as Paul and Morgan, who you saw in the 24 Hours With video. And you see that she was looking for a husband with those same types of things, and that early on, he shared them. I only shared with you guys videos relating to their views around intimacy early on, because this video is already so long, I can't include much more, but I've shared examples like the Barbie movie, or like Dave responding and being open to these types of conversations in the comments. There's been a lot more little things that we've slowly seen change over time, and although it was shocking to see them make a video like this, the reason it wasn't shocking that Dave was deconstructing, it's shocking that Bethany is okay with it and being open about it. She is actually doing what the Bible says you should do in this scenario. She is following the Bible to a T. The Bible would not recommend that you divorce over this. The Bible does say, and she has said this, that like if she knew that this was going to happen, she wouldn't have married Dave. And she wouldn't have married him if she thought he was deconstructing at the time. But because she did marry him, she's not sanctioned to divorce him. So I'm going to let them continue. But yeah, what is most shocking about this is kind of the peace that they've seemed to have reached with this. Because Morgan's judgment is a much more kind of common reaction or response than Bethany's
when it comes to this stuff. And I even found myself wanting Christianity to not be true, just because of my own personal experiences with trying to have it be real in my own life, and just the disappointment that I found where it hasn't my perspective, it hasn't really seemed to help me. It hasn't really seemed to make me any more of a better husband or a better man. It seems like when I do other things that are more taking charge of my own development, it seems like I improve more. And then it seems like when I try to find my identity in Christ, it just doesn't seem to work. And so I got to this point where it's like, I hope this isn't true, because I don't want to go through life always having to think I'm the worst, and in order to find the life in Christ, and that whole thing where it sort of requires you to feel really bad, or to at least admit, you're just sort of nothing and you have nothing, and so that's why you need Jesus, and isn't that such great news? It's like, it's just stopped being good news for me.
The phrase, it stopped being good news for me, is so relatable. And I definitely reached a point as well where I kind of deep down hoped that it wasn't true. Because if it was, it almost meant like God hated me, because my effort was there. My reaching out to God was there. And so I almost was like, gosh, if it is true, then it's like God just hates me. Obviously that's not the Christian viewpoint on it. That's just how I felt. But for somebody like Bethany, this would be devastating to hear. To hear your Christian husband say, he doesn't want to find his identity in Christ. That would be very, very difficult. But she does seem to be handling it well. And this is why, although I don't agree with Bethany on 99% of things, and I think she does have a lot of harmful views, I think her views are changing, and I think that they are a good example in this relationship right now of what an interfaith marriage and kind of finding acceptance with each other can look like. If somebody with the original views that Bethany had can do it, there is hope for all of us. And so I'm going to let them continue. But yeah, this early part, I think it has to be painful for Bethany. And although she is doing a great job at giving him the space to speak for himself, you can see that it is painful for her in her eyes if you pay attention.
And so, but I felt constrained by myself, my own inability or lack of desire to challenge certain institutions that I'm a part of, or challenge certain communities, because that would throw things into chaos. That would, it would be hard to go to church. It would be hard to be married to Bethany. It would be hard to do a lot of these things. I'm established in Christian community, so it just makes it, because of my own choice to be in Christian community, it makes it challenging if I'm gonna basically say, hey, I don't think I'm a Christian anymore. But over the course of the weekend with Paul and Morgan and with other people, I basically got to a point where it wasn't enough of a reason for me to not take that next step. And for me, it's like just kind of acknowledging all of my questions and doubts just all at once and just being like, actually, I'm not sure this is true. I kind of hope it's not. I say that, but it's like, that's a lot for Bethany to go through.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like there's a lot packed in there. It's definitely not just been since like the Paul and Morgan thing. I feel like you've had a new level of boldness or a new level of freedom to share those things since that weekend. But like, you've been studying this stuff and thinking about this for like years.
And in fact, 1 year ago, almost 1 year ago, because it was the time of Lent, but last year, I had something like this happen where I had all of these, I was like talking to a pastor and I was like, I'm not sure I should be taking communion and whatever. And we had the question of whether to become members and all this stuff. And
the denomination that I grew up in, we did not take communion every Sunday, so it didn't come up all the time. I definitely struggled with whether or not to take communion. You're kind of told that you're only supposed to take communion if you're in good standing with God. And so when I started to deconstruct and I was having all these doubts about God, I stopped taking communion when I would go to religious organizations. And it's kind of like a public acknowledgement that like you're not right with God in a way. It was kind of embarrassing to do. But yeah, I didn't want to take communion because I didn't want to be like, you're taught to take communion very seriously. At least I was taught to take it very seriously. And I was like, I'm not right with God right now, so I can't be taking communion. Something that I do appreciate about her response is that she seems to be acknowledging how much work went into his deconstruction and how much effort he put into it. Because the typical Christian response, even to my own deconstruction story that I posted, is Christians telling you that you were never really a Christian then, you don't really know the Bible, you just misunderstood the Bible, even though I, like Dave, have read the Bible probably, I don't want to throw out a number because I don't actually know, but it's got to be like 5 or more times. She is acknowledging how much effort and knowledge and turmoil went into this, and that it wasn't a light choice for him, something that he just did overnight because he's selfish. And I really appreciate that, and that's really refreshing for me. Again, there are a lot of issues with Bethany Beal's opinions on things and whatever, but specifically on this topic, I appreciate her making space for him having put in real, genuine effort and still ended up leaving the faith.
Basically, at that time, I was still kind of in this, okay, I can kind of like make the leap of faith. And so I just sort of took this leap of like, all right, I can believe, I don't know it, and I can't, this is not so rational, but I'll just like, okay, that's what faith is. Faith is just kind of, dedicating yourself and trusting and, okay, so I can, I say what I believe even though I don't like feel it, because what is belief anyway, and I kind of used just relativism on myself and be like, well, we don't know anyway, so you just might as well dedicate yourself or whatever. And so, okay, all right, I'm a Christian and I can hold this and I can, whatever. And so that happened a year ago, and I stayed in the Christian community, but as kind of like giving assent to this stuff and taking communion and being a part of this. And so that's what's different now. I basically got to a point where I was like, I don't
I don't need to hold up any of that. I don't need my friends to think that I'm one of them in this sense. I don't need people on the internet to think. I mean, it's really more like my marriage, my church community, basically the life that I have. A lot of my work has been in the Christian space, so it's just so much of that. It feels like I finally got the balls to basically be honest about things that I've thought for a long time. And I apologize to Bethany because I haven't always been honest with her. And when we got married, I had already started deconstruction. And I had read quite a lot fewer books when we got married, and had listened to podcasts and stuff, and was already very friendly towards certain forms of progressive Christianity and stuff like that. And when I got married to Bethany, I thought, well, this is going to be a problem because, and I wanted Bethany, and I love her. And so at the time I was like, this is just going to cause problems in our relationship. So I was just like, all right, I believe that the Bible is your word, and I accept this authority, and blah, blah, blah. And I just kind of tried to push myself over the edge to make it work.
I do think that a lot of us go through a phase of kind of like the death throes of clinging to your faith at the very end. I definitely went through a phase where I was like, maybe I could still go to church and just participate in community, and like he said, just kind of dedicate your life to something, because even if you choose nothing, that's still a choice. But the further you deconstruct, the more that you realize that stuff doesn't work, and it is you just trying to make faith fit into this box that your mind doesn't, there's no hole to put the peg into anymore. Like it's just not there anymore. But I do think that he is being a little bit hard on himself. He's essentially saying that he like deceived her from the beginning. And in a way, I'm not him, I don't know. He might have, in a way, kind of been deceptive. But even for myself, like, I didn't fully understand these things, and I certainly wouldn't have labeled them as deconstruction. For me, I was strengthening my faith. I was trying to answer the questions I had. So I wouldn't have considered the first several years of my deconstruction where I was like listening to queer pastors like Brendan Robertson, or, I was still a lot of times finding things from a Christian source. Now I can look back and say, yeah, that was deconstruction, and I was no longer a Christian at that point, or like I didn't know what to label myself, but looking back, my mind had already kind of passed that uncrossable threshold. But hindsight is what gives you that ability. During the time, I would have definitely said, like, I'm clinging to my faith right now, because I was trying to. So I don't know that Dave really, like, went into this marriage with, like, I'm just gonna fake it to get the girl. I know that's kind of how they're phrasing it, but I would have to think that he's maybe being a little bit hard on himself here, and that with the benefit of hindsight, now he can see clearly that he was deconstructing already at the beginning. But like, I was still trying to find a church while I was deconstructing. I was still reading the Bible and praying while I was deconstructing. I would have still dated a Christian man while I was deconstructing.
That was disingenuous and a lack of integrity, honestly. And at the time, it was a weak thing to do, and I didn't really know how to like stand up and just say, this is what I think, in the face of the anxiety that it could cause both in other people and in myself. So that's kind of changed, and so I've apologized to Bethany. I said, I'm sorry for selling you a picture of myself that's not been true, and making it seem like I believe a certain thing or am a certain way in order to make you feel better, when I'm really not. Mm-hmm. So how's that been for you?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That is a lot to share. Does it feel okay to share? Do you feel okay?
Yeah, I feel like I just kind of rammed through it.
Yeah. That's like a big deal. So
it's a huge deal. Yeah.
Acknowledge that. It's a big deal to acknowledge it. And I would say it's not something that I would have, like, I I don't think when we got married, I would have thought you were going in this direction for sure. But I think maybe like a year or so into our marriage, just your interests and books and what you like to study and stuff, it was like, okay, I think that it was, you know, I could start to see that coming in. But I mean, we've had conversations about this sort of stuff. I've not been like totally in the dark for a while now, I would say. So I think that that's definitely been, I wouldn't say you've been like totally dishonest recently, maybe just when we got married.
Maybe at the very beginning.
Got the girl. Surprise.
Well, it wasn't like the next day I was like, surprise, I'm an atheist. You just did it with an atheist.
You just did it with an atheist. That kills me every time I see that clip. I'm gonna have to clip that and put that in the intro because it cracks me up every single time. But yeah, I think what she's kind of clarifying, or he's clarifying there, is like, this process of deconstruction is like a series of realizing a million things and having to research a million things and look up the origins of a million things. And it's a very slow, painstaking process. And especially as a spiritual leader, the husband, his role is not really to be like bringing his doubts to his wife. He's supposed to be going to God in prayer, seeking counseling from other people and getting those questions answered so that he can answer his wife's questions. So I could see where it would be difficult for him to be bringing up these things and saying, I'm really stumped. I can't find an answer. No one else has an answer. And I don't expect you to have an answer. But these things are causing me to lose my faith, especially if he sees it being supportive. Like, there are people that I know where faith is a very positive, good thing in their life. And there is no part of me that wants to go debate those people and try to get them to leave their faith. There's nothing about that would make me happy, right? Like, that is not the direction that I want to go. And especially because her whole career is Girl Defined Ministries, it would probably be really difficult for him to go to her and say, like, I think that your whole career, your worldview, and the most important thing to you, your faith, I think that all of that is built kind of on bullshit.
I mean, yeah, people have a lot of questions about that. Like what I think, what you think, how that works in our relationship. I think that we are uniquely gifted to love each other and work through a relationship like this. I think that even though it's hard for me, it does not, I am not like, I don't know. I have so much love for you, and it is emotional. A lot of people have wondered and have asked, like in the questions and stuff, how that is. And I am emotional, so we're just gonna roll with it. Or else we'll never finish. I think that, like, when I think back to, I think this is something that, like, I really believe, like, when I think back to when we got married, I still look back and it's like, I have so much confidence that we're supposed to be together. And I have so much confidence that we are like super uniquely gifted to like really love each other. And I think we have I think that and people have told us, like, you know, that we sought counsel from and stuff, just have been so encouraging and supportive of how we've been able to like press toward each other and love each other and have these conversations and not just like run away from each other in fear or like separate, but we've been able to like grow. And even though it's hard, this big difference of ours now, more now than we did, 3 weeks ago, a year ago when we got married, obviously. Yeah. And like my heart is filled with so much love for you, and I want to be the woman with you. Like I don't want to be anywhere else, like I don't want a different man. Like I want to be with you.
Oftentimes Christian women are taught that being in a Christian marriage is protective because If he's seeking God first, then he will never cheat on you. He'll never abuse you, and he also won't see divorce as an option. Now that Dave has left the faith, that opens all of those possibilities up to her. So I could see how that would be really terrifying. She doesn't know what moral code per se. Obviously, Dave didn't change overnight and he's not a completely different person. But from this fundamentalist evangelical perspective, there isn't this guardrail mentally that's going to keep him consistent or behaving in a way that she could expect, anticipate, right? Like she now has to grapple with the possibility of divorce in her future.
I think I was telling you today, like we have so many things that we, like even just when I think back to like, I don't know, dating or whatever, it's like just like the stuff we love to do together, the unique relationship we have. I mean, that's one of the reasons, like from the beginning when we started dating, I was like, I want to do YouTube with you because I just, and it's gonna sound so selfish, but it's like, I love our relationship. And I think we're like a super special couple.
That is the end of their video, and after this, they delete or private the video. They don't really speak again. The last I heard of them was when they emailed me just saying they're enjoying their summer together as a married couple. I believe that, and so I'm glad to hear that they're doing well, but the part of me that is like, wants the content, right? Like, I want to see more from Dave in particular, but if Bethany and Dave did some kind of interfaith podcast together, I would definitely watch that. I would love to see the continued growth. I know that Bethany thinks that when we say continued growth as like critics, that we want her to leave her faith and like have her marriage be ruined. And I just want to be clear, I do not think that Bethany needs to leave Christianity as a whole. Necessarily, there is a version of Christianity that I'm personally okay with and I think can be healthy for people. And I also would, you know, they have kids together. Ideally, their marriage works out. And I obviously want that for you guys as well. I want all of your relationships to be happy and healthy. And so I'm going to ultimately want the same thing for them. I don't want them to come back to, have it be a negative thing. I want them to come back and share the positive things that they've learned and how their viewpoints have expanded beyond what they started out with. Because Bethany's been on the internet since before marriage and kids. It's been over a decade. And so, of course, her opinions will have changed. Overall, I loved seeing the deconstruction progression. But I will say there is an aspect of it from the Christian point of view where this is really devastating for Bethany. And I don't think that we should minimize that either. This has to be really, really hard for her. She's taking on now the role of spiritual leader as well. And there is a very possible future where her sons don't believe in God and she is kind of the only one in her, now immediate core family that has her faith. And for a lot of Christian parents, that is a terrifying reality. That's devastating. I would be really curious to hear more from them. Let me know if you guys would be interested in hearing more from them. To be honest, I'm not that interested in the Girl Defined channel. They've made a few just Girl Defined videos. Kristen, not that interesting to me just personally, but yeah, Bethany and Dave, very interesting to me. So let me know if you guys would be interested in seeing more from them too in the future. I think that there definitely is a future where they make more content. All right, you guys, let me know what you think about this video. Please like the video if you made it this far. Hit subscribe or double check to make sure that you are subscribed if you're not already, and leave a comment down below about what you thought about this video. Leave a few if you want, or if you don't know what to say but you want to say something, you can always leave a bird or a dove down below because that's my logo. If you guys want to support me even further, you can always become a member to my channel for a few dollars a month and get to see these videos sooner than everyone else. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.